Olivia Hart believed she knew the rhythm of her life the way one knows the sound of their own heartbeat, steady, familiar, and safe. Every morning, she rose before the sun, brewed coffee in the quiet kitchen, and listened to the soft hum of the city waking up beyond the window. Across the table usually sat her husband, Marcus Hart, scrolling through his phone, barely looking up when she spoke. It wasn't perfect, but Olivia thought it was still a marriage. That illusion shattered on a Tuesday afternoon when a pale-faced clerk at a government office looked at her file and said, almost gently, "Ma'am, according to our records, you've been divorced for 8 months." Olivia laughed at first, the sound nervous and hollow. "That's not funny," she said. The clerk didn't smile. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the counter. "There must be a mistake. I live with my husband. We share a bed." The clerk turned the screen so Olivia could see Marcus's signature stamped neatly across legal papers. Her legs felt weak as the world tilted. That evening, when she confronted Marcus in their living room, her voice shook. "Tell me this isn't real," she whispered. He didn't deny it. He only sighed and said, "I did what I had to do." The silence that followed was louder than any scream Olivia could have let out. Olivia spent that night sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the shadow Marcus cast against the wall as he packed a small bag. "You planned this," she said softly, her voice more hurt than angry. He zipped the bag and finally looked at her. "You wouldn't have agreed if I told you," he replied. "I needed control." That word, control, echoed in her mind long after the door slammed behind him. The next morning, Olivia called her best friend, Talia Monroe, her voice breaking as she tried to explain. "He erased me, Talia," she cried. "He erased our whole marriage like it never existed." Talia was quiet for a moment, then firm. "No, Olivia. He tried. But you're still here. And you're going to fight." Those words became a small flame in Olivia's chest. She began digging through drawers, old emails, bank statements, and forgotten files. Every paper felt like a puzzle piece of a life she thought she knew. One evening, she found a folder labeled Investments tucked behind Marcus's work files. Inside were account numbers she had never seen. "You hid this too," she whispered to the empty room. When she showed Talia the documents, Talia leaned back and said, "This isn't just betrayal. This is strategy. And now you need one too." For the first time since the clerk's words, Olivia didn't feel small. She felt awake. The law office smelled like old books and fresh coffee when Olivia met her attorney, Daniel Reeves. He had kind eyes and a calm voice that made her feel like she wasn't crazy for feeling broken. She laid everything on his desk, papers, screenshots, timelines scribbled in shaky handwriting. "He divorced me in secret," she said, her voice steady now, "and moved money, without my name on it." Daniel leaned forward, scanning the documents carefully. "This is serious," he said. "But it also means you have a strong case." Olivia let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I just want my life back." Daniel nodded. "Then we'll go get it." The weeks that followed were filled with court filings, tense phone calls, and late nights. Marcus tried to reach her once. His name flashed on her screen while she sat at her kitchen table surrounded by legal papers. She didn't answer. Instead, she texted Talia, "I'm scared, but I'm not stopping." Talia replied almost instantly, "Good. That's what brave looks like." At night, Olivia practiced what she would say in court, speaking to her reflection. "I trusted him," she whispered. "I believed in us." Each time she said it, her voice grew stronger, like she was reminding herself who she was before she became someone's secret. The courtroom felt colder than Olivia expected. The benches were hard, the air heavy with quiet tension. Marcus sat across the room in a dark suit, looking smaller than she remembered. When their eyes met, he looked away. Daniel leaned toward her and whispered, "Just tell the truth. That's enough." When Olivia took the stand, her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "I found out I was divorced from a stranger behind a counter," she said. A murmur rippled through the room. The judge leaned forward. "Go on." Olivia told them about the nights she cooked dinner for a man who had already legally erased her, about the accounts opened without her name, about the home she paid for but didn't legally own anymore. Marcus's lawyer tried to interrupt. Objection. Let her speak, the judge said firmly. Olivia swallowed and continued. I didn't just lose a marriage. I lost my sense of reality. When she stepped down, Talia squeezed her hand in the back row. You are incredible, she whispered. Marcus finally stood to speak, but his words felt thin compared to the weight of Olivia's story. For the first time, she saw doubt in his eyes. Not power, not control, just uncertainty. The verdict came on a quiet afternoon, rain tapping softly against the courthouse windows. Olivia sat beside Daniel, her heart pounding so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. The judge cleared his throat. This court finds that the defendant acted in bad faith and deliberately concealed marital and financial information. Olivia closed her eyes. All assets in question will be reassessed and restored accordingly. Talia gasped. Olivia felt tears roll down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from release. Outside, under the gray sky, Talia hugged her tightly. You did it, she said. Olivia shook her head gently. No, she replied. I survived it. Later that evening, Olivia returned to her empty house. It no longer felt haunted. She walked through each room, touching the walls like they were old friends. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. I didn't think it would go this way. She stared at it for a long moment, then typed back. Neither did I. But I'm glad it did. She set the phone down and opened the windows, letting fresh air rush in. For the first time in months, she smiled, not because everything was fixed, but because she knew she could face whatever came next. Her life wasn't a secret anymore. It was hers again. The morning after the verdict, Olivia woke up to a silence that felt different from the quiet she had known before. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was open. Sunlight spilled across the floor, and for the first time in months, she didn't rush to fill the space with noise or distractions. She made tea instead of coffee, letting it steep slowly, watching the steam curl into the air like a soft promise. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her younger sister, Naomi Hart, who had stayed distant during the marriage. I heard what happened. Are you okay? Olivia stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, I'm learning how to be. Naomi called her immediately. I should have checked on you sooner, Naomi said. I didn't know how bad it was. Olivia leaned against the kitchen counter and closed her eyes. I didn't either, she replied quietly. They talked for an hour about childhood memories, about the way their mother used to sing while cleaning, about the little pieces of themselves they had lost and were now trying to find again. When the call ended, Olivia felt lighter, like she had unlocked a door she didn't realize she had shut. That afternoon, Olivia met Talia at a small cafe near the park, one with chipped mugs and soft music playing in the background. Talia slid a pastry across the table and said, You look like someone who just stepped out of a storm. Olivia smiled faintly. I feel like someone who doesn't need an umbrella anymore. They laughed, and for a moment, the world felt normal again. But then Talia leaned forward, her expression turning serious. What are you going to do now? Olivia stirred her tea, watching the swirl of milk fade into the dark liquid. I don't know yet, she admitted. For so long, everything I did was tied to Marcus. Where we lived, what we saved, what we planned. Talia nodded. Then maybe now is the time to plan something just for you. Olivia looked out the window at the park, where a woman was teaching her daughter how to ride a bike. I used to want to open a small design studio, Olivia said softly. I never told anyone because it didn't fit into our practical life. Talia's eyes lit up. Then tell me about it now. And so Olivia did, her words spilling out faster than she could stop them, like a dream finally allowed to breathe. Later that week, Olivia walked into an empty storefront with large windows and peeling paint on the walls. The realtor, a tall man named Henry Clark, handed her the keys and said, It's not much now, but it could be something special. Olivia stepped inside, her footsteps echoing in the hollow space. She imagined desks by the windows, plants in the corners, sketches pinned to the walls. It already is something special, she said, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. Henry smiled. I like your attitude. As she signed the lease, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from excitement. That night, she called Naomi and Talia. I did something today, she said. I took a risk. Good, Naomi replied. You've earned a few of those. Olivia stood in the empty room after hanging up, listening to the city outside, and whispered, This is mine. The words felt powerful, like a promise she was making to herself instead of someone else. Marcus tried to reach her again a week later. This time, he didn't text. He showed up at her door. Olivia froze when she saw him through the peephole, his hair uncombed, his shoulders slumped. She opened the door just enough to stand in the frame. What do you want, Marcus? She asked, her voice calm. I wanted to see how you were, he said. She crossed her arms. You already know. I'm fine. He hesitated. I didn't think you'd actually win. I thought you'd give up. Olivia tilted her head slightly. You never really knew me, did you? The words stung him, and she could see it. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Finally, he said, I'm sorry. Olivia studied his face for a long moment, then nodded once. I accept that, but I don't need anything else from you. She closed the door gently, not in anger, but in finality. On the other side, Marcus stood alone. Inside, Olivia leaned against the door and let out a long breath, feeling the last thread between them finally snap. The studio slowly came to life. Olivia painted the walls a warm cream color and brought in a second-hand desk she found at a market downtown. Talia helped her hang shelves, while Naomi showed up one afternoon with a small potted plant. Every place needs something alive in it, Naomi said, setting it by the window. Olivia laughed. So, do people. As days turned into weeks, clients began to trickle in. A local baker who needed a logo, a school that wanted a new website, a small band looking for album art. Each project made Olivia feel more grounded, more sure of herself. One evening, as she locked up the studio, she realized she hadn't thought about Marcus all day. The realization felt like a quiet victory. She walked home under the streetlights, humming a tune her mother used to sing, and for the first time in a long while, the future didn't scare her. It invited her. At a community event one Saturday, Olivia met Jonah Miller, a soft-spoken photographer who was documenting local artists and small businesses. He pointed his camera at her studio and said, There's something honest about this place. Olivia smiled. I think it's still figuring out what it wants to be. Jonah laughed. Aren't we all? They talked about art, about cities they wanted to visit, about the strange ways life could fall apart and come back together again. Before leaving, Jonah handed her his card. If you ever need photos or just want to talk, he said. Olivia tucked it into her pocket, unsure why her heart felt lighter after he walked away. That night, she told Talia about him. I'm not looking for anything, Olivia said quickly. Talia grinned. No one ever is. That's usually when things find you. Olivia rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. The first time Olivia invited Naomi over to the house, it felt like reclaiming a piece of her past. They cooked dinner together, laughing when the sauce boiled over and the smoke alarm went off. You were always the calm one, Naomi said, waving a towel under the alarm. I guess I had my moments, Olivia replied, thinking of the courtroom, the studio, the way she had faced Marcus at the door. After dinner, they sat on the couch, flipping through old photo albums. You look happier now, Naomi said softly. Olivia considered the word. I think I look like myself, she answered. Naomi reached over and squeezed her hand. The moment felt simple, but it was full. It reminded Olivia that rebuilding wasn't just about new things. It was also about reconnecting with the parts of her life that had been waiting for her to come back. One evening, Daniel Reeves called to check in. I know the case is closed, he said, but I wanted to make sure you're doing okay. Olivia smiled at the sound of his voice. Better than I ever thought I would be. Daniel hesitated. You know, what you did standing up like that, it inspires people. I've had clients mention your story. Olivia laughed softly. I didn't mean to be a story. I just didn't want to disappear. Daniel paused. Well, you didn't. You made yourself very visible. After the call, Olivia sat by the window, watching the lights in the buildings across the street flicker on one by one. She thought about the woman she had been at the counter in that government office, clutching the edge of the desk, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath her. She wished she could reach back through time and tell that woman, "You're going to be okay. You're going to be more than okay." Jonah stopped by the studio one afternoon with his camera. "I was in the area," he said, sounding casual. "Thought I'd see how things were going." Olivia showed him around, pointing out her favorite projects. He snapped a few photos, capturing the way sunlight hit her desk, the way she smiled when she talked about her work. "You're different when you're here," Jonah said. "Different how?" Olivia asked. "Stronger," he replied. The word lingered between them. They went for coffee afterward, sitting outside as the evening cooled the air. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Jonah asked gently. Olivia thought for a moment. "I miss who I thought I was," she said. "But I like who I am now." Jonah nodded. "That sounds like progress." Olivia smiled, realizing how far she had come. A letter arrived in the mail one morning with Marcus's handwriting on the envelope. Olivia stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, he had written about regret, about loneliness, about how he never meant to hurt her as deeply as he did. Olivia folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. She didn't feel angry. She didn't feel sad. She just felt done. Later that day, she met Talia for a walk in the park. "I got a letter from him," Olivia said. Talia raised an eyebrow. "And?" Olivia shrugged. "And I realized I don't need answers anymore." Talia smiled. "That's how you know you've healed." They walked in silence for a while, listening to the wind in the trees and the laughter of children nearby. Olivia felt present, grounded, and whole in a way she never had before. The studio celebrated its 6-month anniversary with a small gathering. Clients, friends, and neighbors filled the space, music playing softly in the background. Naomi gave a short toast. "To Olivia," she said, raising her glass, "for turning a broken chapter into a beautiful new beginning." Everyone clapped, and Olivia felt her cheeks warm. Jonah caught her eye from across the room and smiled. Talia stood beside her and whispered, "Look at this. You built all of this." Olivia looked around at the people, the walls, the work she had created. "We built it," she corrected. The moment felt like proof that she wasn't alone anymore, not in the way she once had been. Later that night, after everyone left, Olivia sat alone in the studio. The lights dimmed, the city quiet outside. She pulled out a notebook and began to write. Not designs, not plans, but her story. She wrote about the clerk's voice, the courtroom's cold air, the sound of the door closing behind Marcus. She also wrote about tea in the morning, about laughter in the cafe, about the way Jonah's camera clicked softly as he took her picture. The words flowed easily, like they had been waiting for her to let them out. When she finished, she closed the notebook and held it to her chest. Her life, she realized, wasn't just something that happened to her anymore. It was something she was shaping. Jonah invited Olivia to an art show downtown, one featuring local creators telling stories through images and words. As they walked through the gallery, Olivia saw pieces that spoke of loss, hope, and resilience. "This reminds me of you," Jonah said, pointing to a painting of a woman standing in the rain, her face lifted toward the sky. Olivia studied it. "It reminds me of who I used to be," she replied. Jonah smiled. "I think both can be true." They stepped outside into the cool night air, and for a moment, Jonah reached for her hand. Olivia hesitated, then let her fingers lace with his. It felt gentle. It felt real. It felt like a choice, not a need. Months later, Olivia stood in her studio, watching the rain fall against the window. Naomi was on a ladder, adjusting a light fixture, while Talia sorted through new project folders at the desk. Jonah leaned against the wall, camera in hand, capturing the scene. "You know," Jonah said, "this place feels like a heart." Olivia laughed. "I hope it keeps beating." She looked around at the people who had become part of her life, at the work she loved, at the peace she had found. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. She glanced at it, then turned the screen face down. Whatever it was, it could wait. For once, She wasn't running from her life. She was living it. That night, Olivia returned home and stood in front of the mirror, the same place she once practiced her courtroom words. She looked at her reflection and smiled. "You did it," she whispered, not as a celebration, but as a quiet acknowledgement. She thought about betrayal, about resilience, about the strange, painful path that had led her here. She opened the window and let the night air in, carrying the sounds of the city and the promise of tomorrow. Her life wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple, but it was honest. And as she turned off the light and walked into the darkness of her bedroom, Olivia knew something with absolute certainty. She was no longer defined by what had been taken from her, but by what she had chosen to become.